Hello, welcome back to From Soft Serve. We're back in Dark Souls 2, Scholar of the First Sin, or Second Sin, I suppose. Today it's about my Shadows of Drangleic mod, which my Dark Souls 2 mods can be a little confusing because I had like a lot of different ones, but basically the main one is the texture mod, which is the Second Sin texture overhaul, which basically overhauls every texture, higher resolution. Big thing is that it adds a lot of parallax occlusion mapping to surfaces. So that's part of that mod. That started off as a Shadows of Drangleic type thing, and then I moved that over to the Second Sin texture mod because it just made more sense to be over there as its own thing. And people could use those textures and the parallax occlusion mapping with whatever preset of Dark Souls 2 lighting engine they wanted, right? And so then Shadows of Drangleic here is basically my Dark Souls 2 preset, or Dark Souls 2 lighting engine preset. This is my personal one. I have the other mod, which is called Dark Souls 2 Classic preset, which turns off most of lighting engines like overrides, right? But I've always wanted to make like my own preset for Dark Souls 2 lighting engine that wasn't just disabling stuff, and actually like used all of the capabilities of Dark Souls 2 lighting engine, which for those uninitiated, Dark Souls 2 lighting engine completely rips out the rendering engine of Dark Souls 2 and replaces it with an incredibly modern one, cutting edge, and obviously adds volumetric fog and better shadows and soft shadows and just everything you could possibly think of. DLSS, better anisotropy filtering, better depth of field, just everything. So this preset that we're showing here, I'm gonna warp to a lot of different places. This mod also started as like a mod to transition the whole game over to dynamic lighting, where basically in lighting engine you can actually go under the lighting preset here, and you can actually go to the shadow settings pretty easily, and you can actually turn off the baked shadows, which those also uninitiated to that, baked shadows are basically just shadows that are rendered offline, or lighting that's rendered offline, and then it's pasted onto the environment as a texture. So basically the engine doesn't actually have to render those shadows. It's more efficient. It still can look really good, and they are better from a distance because of course, yeah, here you can see they don't match up perfectly to where the dynamic shadows are. But the benefit to baked shadows is obviously you could be, 10 miles away from something and it will still render the actual shadow because it's of course just a pasted on thing. It's a texture. And so you can see with the shadows here, you still are reliant on a cascade shadow map system. And so basically higher quality ones at closer ranges, and they are lower quality at higher distances. So that's just how that works. But baked shadows are really nice because you can just have it be really far away and it still renders the shadows. So, you might be wondering, like, why would you go to fully dynamic? It's like, well, the shadows are going to look better than the baked ones because, of course, baked shadows are really reliant on the resolution they were baked at, and so they don't age terribly well on older games commonly. So dynamic shadows can obviously be superior in that case. But basically that's a long-winded way of me saying that this mod, I've re-enabled the baked shadows because there's so many issues that you have when you remove them, and I basically found that was not worth it. So here you still get the benefit of the dynamic shadows, but the stability of the baked shadows, because interiors were specifically awful when you would remove the baked shadows. Like, it was just awful. But let's warp around so you can sort of see how this preset looks. Now, I do want to say really quickly, this video is brought to you by no one, by me. I uploaded it, but it's brought to you by my Patreon, where I host ad-free versions of my videos, and you also get a Google Drive link for all of my mods. If Nexus Mod is too slow for you, which if you don't subscribe to Nexus Mods, it can be a little sluggish. But yeah, so go check out the Patreon in the link below if you would like to support the work that I do. And so here we are in Things Betwix. Oh, I was wondering if so the funny thing is you can actually see an error or a little bug that they left in here. There's this transparent mesh flap that FromSoft left here, and it's obviously like semi-translucent, so you can't. It's pretty easy to miss, but you can actually see this flap here. I don't know if I've ever shown that on video before, but it was really funny. That would need to be edited out, and you can actually see it's applied to the bottom half here. I actually think I can remove that in Fiverr Editor. Wait, I didn't open this chest? What the hell? I think I'm on New Game Plus with this guy. Anyway, so yeah, this mod obviously enables shadow casting wherever possible. Dark Souls 2 Lighting Engine by default already does a lot of this. I just went farther and enabled it on anything and everything that made sense. Let's go back out here. Now, of course, this is a mod that just, I have to mention that it simply wouldn't exist, obviously, without Dark Souls 2 Lighting Engine. Like, it is completely reliant on that. It wouldn't exist without Dark Souls 2 Lighting Engine. And even some of the distant, like, new meshes that you'll see, like in Majula and some other areas, but mainly Majula, and Forest of the Fallen Giants, those were placed there by Dark Souls 2 Lighting Engine by default. And my preset is simply built on top of that, so I can't take credit for any of that. But I still like to, respect that, because, of course, that's the start of it. Now, this mod is essentially just my personal preference for, like, what I think the areas should look like. So it's not going to be perfect. Yeah, I noticed this shadow has some real nasty artifacting on it. I'm actually curious if that's... Yeah, I actually noticed here. So there's a shadow quality setting on the user settings part, which is something you can actually tweak yourself. This is not part of the preset. This is actually like what you would pick. So here I have DLSS picked. I actually have DLAA, which is just the anti-aliasing part of it, and it's not any sort of upscaling, because frankly I don't need upscaling with Dark Souls 2. But under the shadow setting, PCSS is actually the highest quality version, and it's like an NVIDIA designed shadow algorithm system, or whatever you would call it. And not algorithm system, you know what I mean. That's the highest version of how they manage shadows. But I've had some issues with PCSS. I generally recommend the soft shadows high. I don't know, I found them to be more stable and generally more pleasing to me, at the very least. But yeah, this is my sort of personal preference for how the areas look. I'm obviously inspired by how the unmodded game looks, because generally I've always loved how Dark Souls 2 looks. Obviously it had some really empty rooms that I think kind of looked weird, but from a visual standpoint and the actual art direction of the areas, I've always really loved. Yeah, this must be a New Game Plus playthrough. I honestly forget. This is my highest level character. Now you may notice in the areas I've shown thus far, which is only Majula and things betwixt, is that the depth of field, this was a recent feature in Dark Souls 2 Lighting Engine, like a full camera lens simulation. And so obviously this is all, you can turn this off. So with the preset, you're not forced into this. You can see under the shading and quality under user settings, there is a camera lens option. And you can actually turn it to be disabled, right? I love it. And so this is what I have it set to, 69, obviously. And then hexagon, which I'll play around with that a little bit more, but the camera sensor size for how much blur, that is all, you can tweak that. I personally love it because I think it actually gives this really dreamy aesthetic that fits Dark Souls 2 perfectly, frankly. So let's go to some more areas. Let's go to Forest of the Fallen Giants, because I really liked this area as well. I was playing the game last night, working more on this, and I updated the mod on Nexus Mods. And it's always one of those things where I get really high, and I go, man, this looks amazing. But then I go, is it just because I'm high? So obviously being totally sober recording this, I'm like, no, you know what? This does look amazing. I like this. I'm proud of this preset. Because basically for each area, I've been going in, and under the preset here, you basically have the overall lighting settings. Like you can actually disable it to kind of go back to what the original game was, but not really. I've noticed that doesn't really work to go. I think that's why I started this preset, because I was like, the DS2 Classic preset I made, I'm like, you know what, this doesn't fully bring it back to the unmodded aesthetic as much to me. And so it's kind of like that Thanos moment of like, oh fine, I'll do it myself. And so basically I'm going through each line here, and you can see scene, ambient lighting, the specular scale, the diffuse scale, scattering and absorption. I'm going to be honest, I don't 100% understand every single one of these sliders. Like, I think that'd be crazy. I obviously don't. But I basically play with each individual slider until I get the area to look how I want. And so you can see there's even cutscenes, camera focus, so this is where you get into the depth of field. And then that's the global illumination, the screen space global illumination. You can actually toggle up and down. And you can see it affects the grass most, but you can see how it's weighted. I've generally found like 6 to be pretty good for some areas, not for all. You also have post-process settings, we have light shafts, and you can toggle out light shafts and bloom and tone mapping. And so there's so many things that you go through for every single area, and you save that lighting, settings for each area, and that's what gets packaged in the mod, and then that's what you get to experience when you download this mod. And so it's really fun to play with because you're in the game the whole time making it, and I think that's the most fun part about it. It reminds me of using like debug mode in Demon Souls. You can basically, it's so cool to be in the game and actually see your changes apply in real time. And it actually lets you ideate way quicker because you can go, oh, shit, that looks cool. Okay, got it. Okay, ooh, okay, so I just need to tweak that down. Versus how the normal visual modding for like Bloodborne and Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 3 is you basically just have to, close the game and then reload it. And then make your changes in like the text file or in Smithbox for Dark Souls 1, and then you have to reload the game. I had, the amount of times you have to do that, or stay at the start screen, and then you just click in, apply your changes, and then reload, and it's pretty slow. So being able to actually make these changes while you're in the game is amazing. And so the other change, of course, is, I do want to make sure that like when you go indoors here, you can see that the transition is very consistent, and it feels very, I don't know, there's continuity between the areas, so it's not as much of like a flashbang when you get into an area and they go, oh my god, the player lighting changes, oh my god, okay, the tone mapping changes. So I've definitely been trying to keep that consistent. Now, as I mentioned earlier, my texture mod used to be part of this. Like, this mod used to have the parallax occlusion mapping and everything. But I made a change where I was like, okay, I'm just going to upscale everything and then update my texture mod, which is still one of the most popular mods I've ever done. And so you're definitely seeing that on screen as the texture mod, because you can see the parallax occlusion mapping on this stone surface, which of course is actually completely flat. Parallax is one of my favorite visual tricks ever. It still gets used, obviously, in the industry, not as much because we obviously moved to higher poly count in general, so parallax wasn't like as necessary. Yeah, let's go run through here. And that's what I really like. I've ended up... Now, this transition kind of sucks. Unfortunately, the lighting direction is completely different for the Pursuer arena, which is what this preset is here. And that's how it is in the base game. But of course, in the base game, you don't have dynamic shadows enabled here, really at all. And so you don't notice that lighting transition because the shadows are baked. So there is no big movement of, oh shit. And that's just kind of how FromSoft transitions between areas. So there are opportunities for that to look really, really goofy. But I don't know. You know, let me know in the comments, but I'm genuinely very happy with how this preset looks. And it reminds me of playing the unmodded game. It just looks better, and it's shaded way better, and the shadows look better, and the armor looks better, and, you know, obviously all of that is due to Dark Souls 2 lighting engine, but it is, just as with any tool or game engine, it's how you use that tool, right? And so, yeah, okay, yeah, so here's a good example. These distant map pieces here, like these mountains, those were added, not by me. Those were added by the creator of Dark Souls 2 lighting engine, and so my preset is built on top of that, but I just wanted to make sure that I'm not taking credit for that. Those are not mine. So, oh man, I love how the cutscenes also use like the upgrades. Man, that bird's texture was pretty low res though. The other thing I've been doing is going through and actually grabbing the skybox textures and upscaling those. Because you can actually do that in Dark Souls 2 lighting engine of like selecting stuff and then you can view the textures for it and then easily upscale them. But oh my god, I love how they have little cutscenes for shit like that. I'm trying to balance using the volumetric fog, which is, you know, you notice here how you can feel the fire really filling up the environment, and that's obviously due to the volumetric fog. But it's really cool that you can end up at this super like dreamy aesthetic, and obviously it's still work in progress, but I kind of love it. And I know it's not going to be for everyone, but that's as with every mod. I think it's super cool. If you turn off the depth of field, like, you know, I don't think it's as cool. It's still going to look good, but my personal preference is definitely for a super dreamy aesthetic. Because I think out of any of the games in the Dark Souls trilogy, Dark Souls 2, and just really in any FromSoft game, I think Dark Souls 2 has the most dreamlike quality to it. I think it was actually part of the development, because the development was an absolute nightmare, at least from what we've heard, is that they ended up having to just sew the areas together at a later point in development. They were like, shit, we can't really make these areas fit perfectly. What if we just sew them together? So you have areas that don't seem like they should fit at all, and realistically they don't. Obviously Harvest Valley or Earthen Peak to Iron Keep is the perfect example of like, well, that doesn't make any fucking sense. But, oh, okay. I'll keep that in. Oh my god. I do need to upscale your cloak there, my dude. It's just grabbing his textures is not easy because he's obviously attacking you at the exact same point. Hey, what's up, Big Duff? What's up, big dog? This is my favorite room to show off the parallax occlusion mapping. I've already done it in the video prior, but I basically do it every single time I come in this room, is all the cracks on the wall. That's being done through parallax occlusion mapping, and so you get this really nice depth. But that's part of the texture mod, not Shadows of Drangleic. So let's warp again. I'm trying to think, what's another good area? Yeah, I do like Huntsman's Copse. I don't love it as an area, but I love it visually. And I really tried to tie this area together a little bit and have this green light sort of impact the rest of the environment, which is actually inspired by the sort of default state of Dark Souls 2 lighting engine, which also did that. But I take it a step further, and so you get this nice green light that affects the character, the entire environment, and I will say that seems a little bright. I'll have to look at that. Oh my god. Oh my god. But really, I want to like pump up how atmospheric the game can feel, and another thing is sort of bringing it back to needing the torch more often. But man, I think the depth of field is putting in work. It just makes, it really just ties everything together with the light shafts and the depth of field. Oh, look at the parallax on that floor. Basically, this is just me just complimenting Dark Souls 2. Like, oh god. Okay, don't worry about it. Scripted death. I haven't made it through every area. The actual reason for me going back to Dark Souls 2 modding at this exact time is I was watching Andy Cortez. He started playing Dark Souls 2 for the first time, which is something I've been waiting for a long time, as that was the last Souls game he has not played. And anyway, I sent him, he asked for some mod recommendations, and I was like, oh shit, okay. And that actually got me to working on the preset more, because I was like, shit, okay. I saw some glitches in my classic preset, and so I was like, you know what, shit, I need to go back to my Shadows of Drangleic mod and really do the work, as if it's real work, to make the preset look more like I want. Which actually here I'm like, I don't think this Earthen Peak looks like I left it. I don't know. This looks different. Can't tell, but this doesn't look like the Earthen Peak that I remember editing yesterday or the day before. I don't know. Dark Souls 2 lighting engine is still a little wonky, where sometimes it will not initialize the area. I've had that every once in a while. Ooh. Yeah, okay. Let's reset that. I don't know what the fuck that was. Okay, that's better. I actually made a small tweak to the diffuse scale, because the shadowed regions were a little too dark for my taste, but this feels better for me. And so this is Harvest Valley / Earthen Peak, and yeah, I think it looks cool. I think it looks sick. I always wonder if I could just make videos where I go, I mean, essentially that's kind of what I do, where I say, this looks sick. And people go, that's cool. That is literally what I do for money. Is I go, I'm going to make this thing look cool to me. And maybe other people agree that it also looks cool. But that is my goal. Oh my god, actually, how did I almost skip Hot Lady? Okay, Hot Lady, let me heal. Oh my god. I hope they do the grab attack. They don't have the one that, like, kicks you down anymore? Okay, actually, let me take care of you first. Well, that should have been friendly fire. I think we can all agree. Well, shit. Man, he's taking, like, 6 years. Oh. You know, the crazy thing is, I don't think that hammer's in the game, right? It doesn't seem like it is. I've never been able to get the hammer from those guys. Okay, so here we are in Shaded Wood, which I think is one that I really ended up liking, as I was really trying to amp up the shaded part of it, as that's obviously in the name. So I wanted it to feel very shaded, although those light shafts are a little too strong. Oh my god, okay, yeah, oops. Light shaft shadows, little too hard. I went too hard in the yard on that. But I still think it looks cool. And very... because you actually get these like light shafts that are no longer screen space. And so you actually get like this volumetric light light shaft shadow style that is not screen space anymore. But man, when I look up there, that breaks it pretty hard. So I gotta fix that. Oops. But I really wanted to play up the, you know, dreamlike aesthetic to Dark Souls 2 because I think that's the most true version of Dark Souls 2 is dreamy. And with lots of shadows. That's the goal. So basically, if you want a cool looking version of Dark Souls 2, the FromSoft version, which I will never say is the best version, but it's the version that I like. So if you want to try it too, there's a link in the description for this preset and all the bugs that you're going to find. But I'm having fun working on it, and you might enjoy playing it. So let me know in the comments if you want to try out the mod, if you already have. And yeah, thanks for watching. And I'm now going to try getting eaten by this guy. Can I bait out his grab attack? That's the real question. No? Okay. Well, I don't know why I healed. I didn't necessarily need to heal, but I need you to eat me because I believe that's a one-hit kill no matter how much health I have. Hey, chat, can I do it? Turns out, yes, I can. I think he's going to eat me for my entire health. I believe it's one shot. Yeah, I love how he throws me down at the end of it. That's fantastic. You'll love to see it.